You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As a prompt for our conversation on harnessing the skills and experiences of ex-service personnel, let's listen to this background report put together by Kunle Adeyeye.
From the sky, the shores and the lands, Nigeria's security agencies have been called to task to counter diverse security challenges ranging from terrorism to banditry and restiveness in virtually every part of the country for over 1 decade. Unarguably, security forces have relentlessly risen to these challenges, especially the recent success recorded against insecurity in the country, but the obvious is that these agencies are overstretched. How does Nigeria sustain these feats and complement the efforts of security agencies who are overstretched? This is where the phrase "retired but not tired" comes in. There has been growing advocacy for engaging the services of retired security personnel in the fight against insecurity. This arises from the perception that retired but resourceful service personnel can still be of help in boosting security in Nigeria and should not be allowed to waste away.
Officers who are below 65 years, who are veterans now, and I believe still useful, they are more than 50,000. So if this can be checked, I mean, all assets, they have a vast knowledge of a lot of experiences. It's just for us to look back and get them involved. But if throwing them away is throwing a whole gap of experience out of it, which is not good. We need to bring them and blend them with what we have now.
They still have a lot to offer to us. That is why it's good. We should make use of them and they will be of help. But if we can't use them positively, I want to assure you, the other group will use them negatively. So it's better we bring them on board, engage them, and then keep them busy.
Should Nigeria take a cue from other climes in hiring retired military personnel to fortify its territory? Are there risks in engaging the services of these ex-fighters? Informed answers to these questions and other perspectives will be provided by guests on Good Morning Nigeria in a moment.
And to discuss the topic, let me first introduce in our Abuja studio Mike Ejiofor, former director of the Department of State Services, DSS. It's a pleasure to have you, John.
Thank you for Good Morning Nigeria.
He's a regular here and he has joined us and we've discussed a lot on security issues. And also joining us from our Jos studio, we are being joined by Major Gabriel Adeofiku, retired. He's the immediate past Secretary General, retired Army, Navy and Air Force Officers Association. He's a development, management and security consultant and the CEO, Damex Consultants Limited. You are welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, and thank you, Nigeria. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Africa. And NTA, thank you, the biggest network in Africa. And I want to say today is particularly a special day to us all, that we are mourning the funeral, the passing on of Queen Elizabeth II. Remember, we started at Royal West African Frontier Force, RWAF, and so we still have a tinge of that linkage with them as veterans. Thank you for inviting me. All right, thank you very much there, Major. We'll come back to you when the conversation kicks off. We have another guest who's joining us via Zoom, this time from Benin City, the capital of Edo State. He's Dr. Solomon Arase, retired Inspector General of Police. Dr. Arase, we're glad to have you with us on the program today.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, so gentlemen, let's begin the conversation this way. Does Nigeria have a reservoir of ex-service personnel across the services who are at the moment grossly underutilized? And if so, what do we know about the skills and talent of this personnel? Let's begin with Dr. Solomon Arase.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Yes, the intent of having association of retired officers was to have a reservoir of these skilled personnel who have left service but who are still very, very active, both in terms of contributing academically and otherwise to policy formulations of most of their law enforcement agencies. But the problem has always been the mindset of those people who are presently in leadership positions. You don't have to, start behaving in a way that they will look at you as, a meddlesome interloper. If you are invited to provide solutions to some of the issues that they are dealing with, then you will be in a position to do that. In other terms, when most officers, they retire, depending on their inclination, if they are into academics, they always end up in most of the security studies faculties or the sociology departments, where issues that are very, very current and are being researched, and they usually have grants to look into these issues. What are the critical issues? What are the mitigating factors? How can we help the people who are currently there to deal with the issues? And most of these faculties are they are headed by retired military officers or police officers. I think when the CDS came on board, he tried the first workshop he had at the Defense College when he was talking about the use of kinetic or hearts and mind approach towards dealing with these issues of internal social disorder was very, very good, because he was able to draw on the resource of retired officers from both his services and other services. And even the Army Resource Center is currently headed by a retired military officer, General Wahab. And I also know too that the resettlement centers are also headed by military officers. I think if other organizations can key into such this, then they will be able to have sufficient materials to deal with. When most people who left the service in about 10-15 years ago, these oppositional social movements that we presently have, who are now occupying, dominating the security space, they were not there. So I think it is time we have not looked at, what are the causative, reasons why these people are. Is it social? Is it political? Is it economical? Is it fundamentalist or ideological indoctrination? The idea is that we want to deal with these issues in such a way that we are not looking at the root causes of what causes this issue. So it is very important that we start relying on the intellectual and experiential assets of retired officers to deal with these issues. I don't think we don't have a structure now where you can put together maybe retired military officers, police officers to come and join the fight against the thing. But in terms of policy formulation, trying to find solutions to how to go about these issues, especially in their higher institutions, what do you teach the men? How do you assist them to get in touch with the current trends and patterns of crime? You cannot take that away from most retired officers.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Suleiman Arase, is retired Inspector General of Police, and we've heard his opening comment. Let's join Major Gabriel in Jos, and you are the past secretary of the Association of Retired Army, Navy, and Air Force Officers, and I'm sure you must have an idea of the number of ex-servicemen we might have in the reservoir of the military. We're not talking about the police and the DSS and all that. How many times have you been called upon to give advice or to contribute your quota to solving the insecurity problem we have in Nigeria?
Thank you very much, and Thank you for the background information you just gave out. The question asked were this: one, what's the pool of veterans that we have? Two, what qualities do these veterans have that could contribute positively to the challenges we're facing today? And of course, the major challenge understood by everybody is insecurity. But first of all, permit me to say this, that from International Labour Organization reports, particularly that of 2017-2018, the military or the armed forces of Nigeria was the segment that had the highest development quotient in terms of human capital development, that is training of our officers and men in various skills, various endeavors, various aspects of life. And that is not unexpected, that is not it's not unintended, because the military or the armed forces, in fact every other security organization for that matter, it's not just a job, it's a way of life. And because it's a way of life, the entirety of their organization is encapsulated in the totality of life's development. Therefore, we had the best trained in engineering, we had the best trained in medics. In fact, at a particular point, the Nigerian Armed Forces had the highest number of pediatricians managing the health delivery system in the country. And when I think back for the earlier years when we had consultants, very senior consultants like General Simkai, who was one time the commandant and the chief executive of the University of Ibadan Teaching Hospital, and a couple of them. The truth is that we have engineers, we have medics, we have technicians. I'm glad to say today that these lots of skills professionals, they are there, and they are in such a large number. It is unofficially, though not certified by the Bureau of Statistics in Nigeria, because it's still under review. As at 2020, it is estimated that we had about, on the micro level, 300,000 veterans of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, who were both pensionable and non-pensionable, as the case might be, depending on their exit. And we had a macro population behind this of about 10 million people. We are talking now about their families, their wives, their children, all barrack trained, barracks developed, with the barracks mentality, which we call regimentation, and productivity focus in every endeavor. These, we also know, have communal influence in terms of the value the society places on them at their various micro levels. These resources, these are just set aside, ignored, and doing business as if not necessary. But quickly to hit the point, in 1967, when we had an obvious challenge with the Nigerian Civil War, the government unabashedly fell back on veterans, both police and the armed forces. And these all came in, put all they could put into it, and Nigeria went through that civil war successfully. Today it is pleasant history to us. Now we have a situation, a battle raging for 10 years in forms of insurgency. Permit me to state here that averagely, from the statistics available to me, we have an average of about 45 veterans per ward in Nigeria. That is about in the 8.9 thousand wards that we have in the 774 local governments. In some states, these statistics may be a little bit higher. In some states, we have an average of about 80 to 100 wards, veterans in these wards. These veterans have these various skills. So now we talk about downline policing to be able to deal with the insurgency, which is a topic my brother Solomon Arasi, I still have your document which you wrote on community policing, and I remember the comment we passed on it when you came to the University of Jos. Now, These lots, they are, incidentally, the veterans are the people you don't put an age bracket on them for the skills that they develop. For example, I'm over 65 now. By November, I'll be 68. But that does not take away the training the Army gave to me. I'm a development economist. I'm a consultant. I have worked for the African Development Bank in 23 African countries. I have worked for the IBRD, that's the World Bank, on projects in Nigeria, development projects. These are their skills and experiences you can't take away from these veterans. But on the...
Major Gabriel, we will come back to you in the course of the conversation. Let's quickly now come back to Mike Ejiofor, who is with us here at the studios. Of course, he's the former director of DSS. Already we've had the perspective, opening salvo from the former Inspector General of Police and then the retired Major Gabriel. Mike Ejiofor, is it the case that Nigeria has underutilized assets in these veterans? And in a time of crisis, what should we do?
I think some services they are underutilized because there's no coordination. Like you started, we don't have a central controlling body for the veterans. But before I go into that, what veterans are we looking at? We classify them. People who have served 35 years and left the services. People who are forced out of the services. People who are on their own left the services. The most dangerous aspect or how to handle are the people who are forced out of service. They form the bulk of the people even assisting the terrorists. Some of them, out of anger, frustration, they go with the plan because they were forced out. Some of them on flimsy excuses. Some of them political, they are forced out of the service. So if you look at those classes of veterans, they might be very difficult to use. Then the people who have served 35 years and left, some of them are not engaged. They don't have anything doing, but they still want to serve the country. And those who left on their own must have left for one reason or the other. We still find them very useful. Like the former IG said, they can be involved in research. I'll give you an example. The National Institute of Security Studies, we are the vice president of the alumni. They are involved in research. The DG engages people he feels are still very active in the school. And they form policies, security, because the school itself is on just policy formulation, advising government, just like the NIPS too. So what they do, the people who are still engaged are people who were very active in the service in terms of operation, in terms of research, in terms of intelligence, are engaged. That at the micro level. Now, nationally, I think what we should do is to get this, just like the Major said, there is no word that you don't find all these veterans that are occupying this. So we engage them. At our own level, we have association, every service has association of retired officers. So why don't we harness and get these people together? The SSS, for instance, have an association of retired officers who meet monthly. And you must attend the meeting. Or if you don't attend, you associate with, you know what is going on because you need to be updating yourself. You don't just retire and sit down. That's why a lot of our service personnel, all the agencies, not included, they just leave nothing doing, and within months, you see they die of either diabetes, hypertension, and all what have you. So what we should do, like, is not just only helping in fighting all these security challenges. When we come to these elections, you can get them engaged, because there's no way our present security forces have enough manpower and personnel to cover this. So you can get them engaged to assist them, because they are used to it. They are within the environment, they know the environment, they don't walk distances from where they're going to work. So we need to engage them to ensure that actually we get results in fighting this insurgency.
Yes, we talked about this highly skilled, disciplined, literate manpower that is allowed to just wither away. When they retire, when they are forced to retire, usually they are thrown to the wolves, to a society that does not trust them and look at them as enemies, and they also feel as if the society doesn't want them there. Apart from the rehabilitation and resettlement, what other ways have they been engaged? We keep talking about officers. What about the lower ranks?
Yeah, the lower ranks. I know of the army, before you disengage, or the armed forces, before you disengage, you are trained for resettlement. That's why they have resettlement centers. You are trained to engage, because it's important that even before you disengage, you must have something to do. And I want to use this opportunity to appeal to people who are in service or who are disengaging to get involved. We must do something when we leave. If you don't do something, I've been out of service for 12 years, but I'm still busy. I'm either in one station or the other, and it forces you to read. You must read. I'm a lawyer. So we must get these disengagement plans for officers, like farming on a small scale, and when we do all these things for them, engage them. If you call them for national service, they'll be happy to come. If you don't engage them, they'll say, well, I served the country for 35 years, the country didn't do anything for me. And then you call them, they reluctantly, they tell you they will not come. The government has forgotten them. And if you see the state of affairs among the officers, they will not be encouraged to serve the country. But I think we should get engagement plans for them.
Okay, Dr. Jafar, thank you very much. Let's return to Dr. Solomon Arasa, who is still with us via Zoom. Dr. Arasa, well, you touched on it in part in your opening comment, when you did say that a retired officer, let's say an ex-personnel, also has to be careful so that he's not seen as an interloper for those who are currently in charge. But Mike Ejiofor also raised an issue to say the way and manner of exit, of a service personnel could also affect the psychological disposition of such a veteran. Now, Dr. Arasa, I understand that your Zoom is off. If Major Gabriel Adofioku is there, you can pick up this question. That's to say, look, the way and manner of exit of a veteran could affect the psychological disposition of such a person to the service. You retired as a major. I'm sure some of your colleagues became generals, and at a time in this country when we had military rule, retirement was almost a daily occurrence, and sometimes it was for the wrong reasons, to say that, oh, we are clearing the deck, or you found to be suspicious XYZ. How can we manage sometimes such adverse reactions? If you kicked me out, for instance, much earlier than I should have been kicked out on flimsy grounds, and now the country is in crisis, you are saying, look, come back and then be of assistance to us. How do we manage such psychological disposition by officers who were unfairly treated at the exit point?
Thank you, Kingsley. Having related very closely in the last 10 years with veterans across the board, officers and soldiers, it's clear to me that if there is any human capital segment of Nigeria where there is that big heart to forget, to forgive, to rehearse and rehatch our own old comradeship, I think it's with the armed forces veterans. Therefore, that fear should be relegated to the background in this discussion. What should be brought to the fore now is how can we attractively bring these elements back to support the system. And what do I mean by attractively? Like Mike mentioned, we have rehabilitation centers. From this, what we do in the rehabilitation centers is to unwind you from your combative background to a socially productive, reintegrated socially, I think that's the word for it. Bring them so that they can go out there. We are not really, very few of them are cultivated on new skills while there, because the military itself has packaged you for the various skills. What you do there in the rehabilitation centers is to kind of transform or transmute that combat training into civil support training, and then when you go out. But the point in discussion now is, when they go out, does the society appreciate or accept them? Many of us who were able to weather through that and are living today, for example, it did not take me 6 months to get into understanding the development consultancy field in the civil sector when I was out of service. It does not take us too long to accept this nation. There is that inbuilt affiliation to this nation. If you are looking for the best of Nigerians, please look in the veterans. One, they understand this country. Two, they have the skill they can use. The few privileged ones who go around, get something doing, they are okay and running. But how does the society react towards them? The little benefits that they are entitled to, for those who are entitled to, how does the society respond to these benefits? The little social respect that veterans world over enjoy, how do our own veterans get this social response? Come to the point earlier raised by Dr. Awasi. Interfacing the in-service personnel or colleagues with the veterans. Yes, there was initial stress, especially with the end of the military rule and the exigencies of the time. But in the course of time, it has become a lot smoother. There is no more fears of coups here and there. When I see in papers, people say, oh, there is threat of coups. There is no more threat of coups. Those are old cliches that people use to threaten governments. What is there now is a cooperative, collaborative process to wriggle this country out of the claws of what we are experiencing now. A very integrated network of issues, which we quickly summarize as insurgency, kidnappings, and all that. Like I did mention, the skills are there. The population is there. The statistics are available. Interfacing them and getting them to work for Nigeria, there must be a deliberate policy to do that. And it is this policy that will make it attractive for these veterans to be recalled. In 1967, when we were recalling ex-military men, it was easy. We called to the various posts, the various local governments. Those who went to local governments were registered with the local governments, and they came in. Today, do we have that kind of institutional setup? Policy, I will tell you, we have enough policies in this country. The problem is bringing these policies to the fore. Like the armed forces veterans, you may not need them to go straight into the combat, but you will need them for non-combat activities, barracks maintenance, barracks construction, medical support. Thank God, most of the services in the armed forces, the Air Force, for example, I can tell you straight away that quite a lot of the technicians they are using now to service most of their aircrafts were aircraft technicians, built but retired, and are easily recalled because they are in contact with them. Do you have a centralized contact with them? 3 years ago, there was a move to do a nationwide census by the Nigerian Legion, for example, a nationwide census of all veterans, both pensionable and unpensionable ones, to see how we can locate, to see how we can establish a communication network with them, so that when the need comes, this kind of call we are agitating for now would be a smooth sailing issue. So I think it's a question of let us get down to the business and get these organizations functioning. Let us get this aspect put in place, and I can assure you we'll have the necessary hands to support them.
Okay, thank you, Major. Kesley, you want to ask?
All right, Juma, yeah, go ahead, yes.
Okay, Major, you've raised a lot of pertinent questions. I'm talking about policies. Mike Ejiofor, is there a need for a more organized and institutionalized agency that will cater for these veterans across board?
Yeah, I think, I believe the government should initiate the process of harnessing all these agencies, all these veterans under one body. You recall that when, like you said in your intro, when America was invading Iraq, how many veterans were raised to assist? So we need that kind of structure that will get all these people together, if it's at the local government level or the state level, before we come to the national level. But we need a data where all these people can be captured. They will assist mostly because of their background, especially in intelligence gathering. They must be engaged in intelligence gathering so that since they are around, when they have that sense of belonging, they'll be able to even relate and collaborate with the regular forces. But you see, like Dr. Arasa said, leadership at the various level matters. If you come to position and you feel one of the veterans or retired punished you while in the office, you don't grant him any audience. And you are not helping yourself by so doing. I think there must be this relationship between the leadership and don't also forget, like I said when we started, on this issue of exits from the service. Due to political reasons, a set of very efficient officers are retired to make way for one another person.
All this Nigerian money.
Yes.
Well trained.
Money invested are wasted because they are not being used. And some people feel frustrated, like I said. But like Major said, what we do is to see how we can win them back and let them know that Nigeria belongs to all of us.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much. Dr. Arasa is back via Zoom to us. Dr. Arasa, I don't know whether you caught the tail piece of my question to Major Gabriel, which he earlier answered, talking about, for instance, how to overcome some of the psychological challenges that some ex-service personnel might have, considering the way they exited the force. If they were pushed out prematurely, if they were fired or otherwise, and so on and so forth. Plus, the fact that the incumbents may not be so keen on getting such persons. That's one. But the more crucial one I would like to ask, if you want to respond to the first one, is this. We're saying, look, let's have a formal structure, let's have a formal platform for the coordination of ex-service personnel. I would imagine that we'll be looking at that at the national level. Already at the sub-national level, there's a plethora of security outfits. How much can and should state and local governments do in tapping into this reservoir of experienced, widely traveled and talented Nigerians? As Major Adeku said, you have about no fewer than, on average, 45 veterans in each political role in the country. Dr. Arasa.
Well, thank you very much, Kingsley. The measure has properly articulated what the bane of security architecture is in the country. When we were trying to come up with the community policing concept, the DFID, brought in some grants and said, they sent in a superintendent of police who retired from the Metropolitan Police. When the young man came, he carried out some scoping mission. After that, after about 3 months, he said he was going on holidays. He went on holidays. When he was coming back, he brought another 2 of his former colleagues, from the same Metropolitan Police who are retirees, and brought them to Nigeria. The argument we were having with him that time is that there is no community in Nigeria where you don't have retired law enforcement officers. Why do you have to bring in people from outside to come and deepen the concept of community policing? But you see, since we are not putting money on the table to drive this process, we're always depending on grants. So whoever brings the grants wants to dictate how the implementation strategies will be. And I think just as the Major said, and Jofor, we have to actually know exactly what we want in this country. If we are desirous of having, the skills of retired officers, both at the policy and also at whatever level we want to do that, we should be able to sit down together, have a structure in place that will be able to harness the potentials of these retired officers. The issue of when leadership.
Yeah, let me restate it. Dr. Alasa, I know that there was a double-barrel question that I asked. It has to do. The second part of my question has to do with the role of subnational governments in tapping into this pool of ex-service personnel. What can they do against the backdrop of, as I said earlier, a plethora of security outfits? What can they themselves do if you have a minimum of, say, 45 veterans in each political group? What can and should they do? Not saying paying lip service. You form one committee, you say you might chair that committee, and the committee is not well resourced, nothing happens. After a while, everybody goes home. What should be the attitude of subnational entities?
It also depends on the attitude of the people who govern at those subnational levels. I know we've been trying to encourage these vigilante groups, neighborhood watch, problem-oriented policing in the subnational levels, with all the multiplicity of the agencies that we have in those subnational levels. But it is harnessing them, bringing them together to say, okay, what are the goals? Security is situational. The situation of security in one state is different from the other, and you have to situate these ones against the socio-cultural background of each of the states. So, and the leadership still comes in here. How are you able to galvanize all this pool of skills you have in your various states? Some states have been able to do very well. If you look at Lagos State over the years, they have a semblance of a security architecture in place. So this is their neighborhood watch. Then they tap into resources of retired officers here and there. If you look at most of the agencies in Lagos that have been set up, they are either handled by people who have had a stint with the intelligence branch, or police, or even the military. I think that is what we should start encouraging. The governors should take these things very seriously. They can always pull on this reservoir of men here and there, especially when it comes into about intelligence gathering. They are in a better position to gather intelligence. There is no local government in this country today you go into where you don't have a retired officers. And if you are able to arrange them in such a way, then it means that the fusion center in any of the states will be flooded with the type of intelligence that they have. All boils down to leadership. All boils down to how do we see ourselves as a country? The existential threats, do we see it as something that is threatening everybody, and not about us? So once you start to have all this professional envy here and there, you miss the point. So there must be a way we should be able to harness all the skills that we have. It's enormous. It's all over the place, and even most of our strategic institutions, NIST, Defense College, the security, every year they come up with, they take a topic, research it, and present to government. Are those the papers, are they read? Are the implementation, do they take them seriously? So most of these things that we talk about every day, you know, they've been properly researched. It's just an implementation strategy that is actually a problem in the country.
Indeed, implementation is always a problem in this country, and a vast majority of these veterans, they take with them a vast reservoir of knowledge, intelligence, you know, and they can continue to contribute to society. And you listed the 3 people that left retirement forcefully, and what should age be a constraint to engaging these veterans in Nigeria?
Age shouldn't be a barrier, because it depends on your intellect and your capability. I myself, for instance, when the major was talking, next year I'm 70, I'm 69 already, but I'm still working. So it depends on your own personal. You look 49.
Yeah, it doesn't look
It shouldn't be a barrier.
Okay.
But you see, because of neglect of some of the veterans, and some of them who are not ready to help, health challenges impede their performance. But if you are lucky to be healthy, why not contribute to your country? The country has invested much in me, and the only way I have to give back to the country is what I'm doing now. So if government wants to engage the veterans, they should, in fact, institute or possibly initiate a law to regulate this one, and then they have veteran where all this, because it's going to be easy to coordinate, because all the various armed forces and the police, with all the intelligence, they have retired officers association, including both the senior and the junior. So you can easily ask them to compile these things and get moving.
All right, Michael Ejiofor, thank you very much there for your comments. Let's return to Major Gabriel Adefioku, just Network Center. Major Gabriel, we know that there's been established, or at least there was a story about the establishment of a Department of Veterans Affairs in the Ministry of Defense. I do not know whether there is such a department, for instance, with the Ministry of Police Affairs. But Mike already told us that there's an association. These are loose associations, if you like, an informal association, probably registered with the CAC. But we're talking about a formalized structure. What is it that we should expect of such a Department of Veteran Affairs, other than just dealing with, and it is important regardless, dealing with pensions and other issues, where we have issues of this nature now regarding how to harness the skills and talents of retirees, at the strategic, tactical, or operational levels, if need be. Major Gabriel.
Kingsley, it quickly takes us to what the Ministry of Defense has done. The Ministry of Defense has statutorily had the Department of Veterans Affairs, what we call the VAD of Veterans Affairs Department. It's been there. But in the last couple of years, they've gone one step up in the drive to set up what we call the VFN, that's the Veterans Federation of Nigeria. And the intention of that Veterans Federation is to create an umbrella body that will regulate, monitor, integrate, and in cases support these various veterans associations that come up. Our hope and belief is that these would also incorporate not just veterans of the armed forces, but even veterans of the other security agencies, as we have been discussing. The essence of this particular body is to provide that vacuum, that integrating vacuum that had existed and still exists between the veterans and the services they had left. When we talk about age and all that, the age element here is this. Not necessarily the physical combat exercise. For example, as an airborne officer, in training, you are expected to do 45 push-ups in just 3 minutes. Today, if you ask me to do 45 push-ups, of course, you'll be asking for medical support. But then, the truth is that the intelligence or the tangible knowledge imparted into these officers and soldiers do not wane with age. What might wane with age is their physical participation, and we should be able to classify them and put them where they are necessary to support. So it goes back to what, like I said, the Veterans Federation of Nigeria is doing. The expectation under the push of the current Chief of Defense Staff, we are quickly polishing to see how we can make that umbrella body as the gap filler in what is now an issue for us to discuss here. If that body had been functional, believe me, all we'll be asking now is, what is our situation today? The Air Force is doing, like I said, a good job. The Army is doing a good job. There are a lot of veterans who are instructors in various military training institutions. There are a lot of others who are available. But like I said, down the line, the soldier, there are soldiers today who are computer gurus. They are retired. But you can still use their intelligence. You can still use their skills to supplement or to complement what we are doing. There is an effort from the Ministry of Defense. The Veterans Federation of Nigeria, I want to believe, should be, the game on it should be upped so that they can begin to play this role we are talking about now.
Oh, maybe I'm still going to stay with you, and let's talk about something that, might or may not affect the way veterans contribute to nation building, and that is, like some stakeholders would say, the pensions are not paid on time. We've seen ex-servicemen on the street here in Abuja sleeping under the bridge, protesting, asking for their pensions to be paid. How would you come to a person like that and ask him to come and contribute to fighting insecurity in Nigeria? We'll come to you after this break, but we'll be right back. Don't go. Welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria. And Major Gabriel, I threw a question to you before we went on the break. Can you respond to that?
First of all, permit me to quickly refer us back. When I began this discussion, I said a major aspect of the issue is the attitude of the rest of society to these veterans who have put in so much for the security of this country. But it is not also across the societal platform. For example, I can give you a very quick illustration. I walked into a bank, I needed this ATM replacement, and there was a big sitting queue. Everybody was sitting and waiting. When I came in, I sat like every other person, and the staff walked up to me and said, "Sir, you look like a military veteran." I said, "Yes, how did you find that out?" He said, "Please, can you follow me?" And I was so elated. Till date, we still keep him in contact. So the society is doing something. But on the government level, thank God for this government, the pension issue has been very well addressed. Pensions have been flowing as at when due. The society is beginning to respect us economically because they know the last week of every month, veterans talk of alerts now. But at the same time, what they are entitled to should not be made a begging issue, should not become a negotiating issue. You see, the military mind is a regimented mind. Things should work as arranged. For example, the biting one now that is stirring up some discomfort in the system is this issue of what we call the SDA, the Security Debarment Allowance. And if your ears are down on the news, you can hear there is some small, cobbling here and there. Thank God His Excellency the Commander-in-Chief has approved that needed to be paid to these people. Let it not be an issue for demonstrations. Let it not be an issue for another national conference. Since it's in the budget, agreed and approved, let it be settled. Those are the kind of little things we call the government side respect that will endear these people. In any case, when you pay the veterans, you are paying yourself, because at the end of the day, they spend the money in the country. 98% of the veterans in our society have no investments abroad. They are here in the country. So I think that aspect of doing what is necessary for them without reducing it to a trade union government negotiation, no. That is why even the various associations we are talking about that could come under the Veterans Federation of Nigeria, they are not people that we want to act and behave like trade unions. Rather, they want to play advisory role, they want to play supportive role, they want to play a kind of a complementary role to whatever the governments of the day would want them to do to make this country the great country each and every one of them has in his mind. So I think that is the issue on ground. But if that can be done, then we'll be home and dry.
Major Gabriel, thank you very much. I'm happy you raised the issue of the debarment allowance again, and that this is now being paid regularly. The trigger for this conversation was planted some weeks ago when we were discussing security issues, and Brigadier General John Temblong raised the issue of the debarment allowance, and likened it when we were having the conversation around it that this is like restraint of trade. It's a common law doctrine to say, look, you get this allowance because you have been trained, you have skills, you have competencies, so that you don't now use those skills and competencies against the state. Yeah. That's to say, the Nigerian nation, you have this debarment allowance that, of course, the president has now approved to be paid regularly, and we do hope that the payment will be regular. The thing now is, fine, you get your debarment allowance, you get to your pension. How can we, on a positive note, say, gentlemen, this is an existential threat that we face? Your skills are required, your skills are needed. Mike, I raised the question earlier about what the subnational entities should do. We hear regularly that, the governor is the chief security officer of the state. Sometimes when they want to get away from that constitutional responsibility, they say, well, operationally, Commissioner of Police doesn't report to them, even though it's supposed to be part of the security architecture. Local government chairman is said to be the chief security officer of the local government. And yet, we have these veterans in all the local government, in all the wards, in all the local governments, and across the states. Some of the states, as Dr. Arasa said, are already utilizing the services of this person. But how can we ramp this up against the backdrop of what we're dealing with in the country?
Yeah, well, before I answer that question, just like you said, the welfare of veterans is very, very important. And I must commend the DGSSS on his policy that retired officers are paid first before the regular workers. If the encourages and they are happy, that is why we think at the sub-national level, some states are trying, because it's either the police, the SSS, or the military that's appointed special advisor. If you go to Ondo State, for instance, where we have the Amoteco, they'll be very effective. Many of them are retired officers. So at that level, I think the governors who are supposed to be the chief security officers must engage these veterans before we start talking of the national level. I agree completely with what Major Gabriel said. There is no community where we don't have veterans or retired officers. So we must, at that sub-national level, begin to get them together at the local government level. The chairman of the local government should start. Get them, all of them who are at the local, I think the traditional rulers, you can use the traditional rulers to get these people who are retired. Get an association for the local government encompassing all the services at that local government level. From that local government level, you can now get them together at the state level. You have all the figures. You have either you want intelligence, you want them for combat, they are ready. But most importantly, before you do that, you must take care of their welfare. Like the debarment allowance is talking about now. That's one of the features of getting to. At times, you can get them end of year. Let us have end of year party. You get them, they will to sit down. If politicians, they don't even care about all these veterans, because the problem is we need these veterans whether we like it or not. During this election, no service can provide the manpower to help cover all this. But if you get them to complement the services of all these people, the veterans, it's going to help us, especially in intelligence gathering. The intelligence gathering should not be left for the state security service alone. You must get everybody involved and to work out a plan on how, a chain of command on how to pass your messages and information.
Michael Ejiofor, thank you. Let's join Dr. Arase in Benin. Michael Ejiofor has raised some pertinent questions there, and just believe that areas like Kaduna, Benue, Kogi, and Lagos have some of the highest number of veterans, and places like Kaduna and Benue that has insecurities from all corners. Do you think if these veterans were brought on board, the security challenges would not have escalated to what it is today?
Well, I don't think so. I would have wanted to talk briefly about the welfare of police officers, retired police officers. I think it's the worst you can think of in the African sub-region. The military and the DSS, they've been very lucky. They've been treated like an elite organizations, and most of them, when they retire, their pension and gratuities are promptly paid. Yes, these veterans, as I said earlier, you cannot deploy them physically, but they could be very, very relevant when it comes to intelligence gathering and helping to train, the policemen that or law enforcement officers that are already there. I remember the Damadami and the NB Yusuf police reforms had recommended that the police should draft officers with the right mental capabilities to most of the training schools to assist them in training officers, both at the police academy, the police staff college, on gratis, just pay their transport fare and all. And it started during the time of IGP, and just like everything we do in this country, it was not sustained. I think that is one area we should be able to really talk about. In terms of wastages, deaths and retirements in the police force, every year you will expect that when we are going to do the budget, they will say, oh, every year you recruit 10,000 police officers. Let it be on the budget instead of having to wait for approval from the president every year to get to go ahead and recruit 10,000. Then that becomes a contentious issue between the police service
Dr. Arase, looks like there is a freeze on your Zoom connection. If you are there, because we're discussing a very pertinent issue from the DSS perspective and from the three services. We've had what their welfare issues are like. Dr. Arase, maybe you continue from where we lost you a moment ago.
Okay. What I was saying is that the welfare issues of the police has to be properly addressed. They've been advocating for them to be removed from the contributory pension scheme, close to about 5 years now, and nobody has listened to them. So if there is a comparative study of what their counterparts in both the military and the DSS they take home, you discover that they are the most neglected and they are treated like chattels, to be dumped after they have left service. So, they are, most of them are disgruntled. We've been trying to encourage the Association of Retired Police Officers to provide services for this vigilante in all the states. They have them in all the states. I remember in every state, we were able to get them to train the vigilante group. And they eventually did it on gratis. So if the various areas we are talking about now, Kaduna, Benue, where, you know, where the insecurity and social disorder has been very, very high, if they are able to get those associations, it also depends on leadership. The leadership of the police, the executive, how are you able to bring these people on board to be able to assist you people to deal with the issues we are dealing with? So you don't force yourself on people who are not willing to ask for your assistance. So we have to continue to encourage them. They shouldn't see their retired officers as competitors, rather they should see them as people who are prepared to help them. Because the essential threat that we face is if it has not happened to anyone in your family, you don't feel the pain, but it is everywhere, and we just have to be a bit careful.
Well, Dr. Arasa, let me throw this question to you so that if you take it, Major Gabriel can also take it before we wrap up to this conversation. I'm just thinking of, say, going forward. Now we're discussing harnessing the skills and talents and experiences of ex-service personnel. This is a positive side. But we also know that some ex-service personnel, particularly the other ranks, also get onto the other side of criminality, where they engage in negative activities. I'm wondering, for instance, can we, perhaps on this basis, and perhaps on other considerations, tweak some aspects of human resource management in our services? Sometimes when I read that, a police officer has been disciplined, has been dismissed. This is a man who's been trained in weapons handling, probably is a sergeant or otherwise, and is summarily dismissed. I'm not saying don't discipline officers when they commit an offense, but summary dismissal, and if it appears to be quite routine, you are pushing out into society persons who have been trained in weapons handling, persons who suddenly become jobless, and in some cases, a few of them have been picked up at crime scenes or related to crime offenses. So what can we do in that respect? Can there be another way we look at it? You are also a lawyer, to say, all right, discipline, summary dismissal should be for extreme offenses against the rules. That's one. The second one, which is perhaps more critical, at the officer level. We have seen both in the military and particularly in the police. You were lucky, you were a DIG when you became Inspector General of Police. Usually they will go, if it is time to appoint an IG, the police management team, they will circumvent the DIGs and go straight down to the AIGs. And anyone who is senior to the person who's appointed an IG, of course, is eased out of the service. And you lose a great deal of talents from that person. And some persons will say that this could provoke some unpleasant thoughts, and therefore we are calling such persons to come back and help the country, and they just might say, well, give me time to settle in retirement. Dr. Arasa.
Absolutely, Kingsley, you are very correct. You see, officers that have spent a lot of resources to train an officer to a particular level, maybe a commissioner or AIG level, is enormous. And when suddenly their careers are truncated, over some, issues of primordial, sentiment, they leave the system very, very bitter. And when you're not talking about harnessing their skills, they are looking at you and say, what skills do you want to harness? When we were there, you treated us badly. So I think that is one area that the police management or the police service commissioner especially should look into. You don't truncate people's career, because you want to satisfy, some perceived interest. Then you were talking about, the way we dispense with the services of especially our people who have one or two infractions. Yes, that is very, very true. Sometimes I wonder, the way we go about it. I have been against the idea of, over some minor misdemeanor, which you can easily correct. There are very many punishments you can give to an officer that are dead. You can reprimand them, you can reduce them in rank, instead of just, summarily throwing them into, and when we do that, we don't have, a way of supervising what they do when they leave the system. So, they become very easy prey to people who want to, utilize their skills, in a negative way. So I think our punishment system has to be reviewed. If somebody, misbehaves on the highway, maybe in such a way that it embarrasses the force, there are some punishments you can give to them that will make them to start having a rethink that they won't do such a thing next time. I quite agree with you that sometimes this punishment could be very, very harsh, and could be also be counterproductive.
Dr. Arase, thank you so much for your comments. Now let's quickly come back to the studio in 30 seconds. How can the private security outfits harness the potentials of these veterans?
Yeah,
in 30 seconds.
In fact, that's one of the areas I was also thinking about. Looking at the private, they have an association, the private security guard organizations, and most of these organizations are owned by veterans. So the private security practitioners should also be involved. Get them involved in intelligence gathering. Because I always emphasize on intelligence gathering. If you don't have intelligence, there's nothing to work on. So I think they should, all our private security guard owners, the association should be involved, because for you to register a private security guard, whether I'm not into guard, I'm into research and all this thing. One of them is that you must have one retired or two retired officers. Most of these companies are owned by veterans.
Okay, Mike, thanks a lot. Major Gabriel, sorry we are unable to take your thoughts, but if you can you throw in something in 10 seconds? Be using both. Do it under 10 seconds.
First, the background of the veterans is productivity focused, and whether in combat or in the skills they've acquired, there is a need for us to deliberately begin to call them into productivity, because that is the system they understand. That is the style of operations they know how to do best. Secondly, on this issue of how to dispense with the services of veterans, please, I want to suggest that there should be an immediate action setting up a body to carry out a census, a national census, whether in the police, the armed forces, of everybody who has had a tinge with these services and is classified as a veteran. So,
all right, Major Gabriel Adefiuku, would like to thank you. Of course, we will have, God willing, the opportunity of returning to this very interesting subject matter, the very useful proposals that you all guests have provided this morning. Major Gabriel Adefiuku is the immediate past Secretary General, retired Army, Navy, and Air Force Officers Association right now. He's also a development management and security consultant. I joined us from our Just Network studios. From Benin, we were joined via Zoom by Dr. Solomon Arase, lawyer, political scientist, and former Inspector General of Police. Thank you very much, Dr. Arase, for your insight this morning. Now, here in the studios, we had Mike Ejiofor, also a lawyer and the former director of the Department of State Services, DSS. So, let's take a bit of sports.